Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. Let's turn inward to prepare ourselves for looking outward, looking at the words of another to inspire us, to guide us, to teach us, to show us potentially something we haven't noticed before. Take a deep breath, and when you're ready, let's go. All that, Socrates, appears to me to be true, but I should like to know what you think about another definition of temperance, which I just now remember and have heard from someone who said that temperance is doing your own business. Was he right who affirmed that? You monster, I said. This is what Critias or some philosopher has told you. Someone else then, said Critias, for certainly I have not. But what matter, said Charmides, from whom I heard this. No matter at all, I replied, for the point is not who said the words, but whether they are true or not. There you are in the right, Socrates, he replied. To be sure, I said, yet I doubt whether we shall ever be able to discover their truth or falsehood, for they are a kind of riddle. What makes you think so? He said. Because, I said, he who uttered them seems to me to have meant one thing and said another. Is the scribe, for example, to be regarded as doing nothing when he reads or writes? I should rather think that he was doing something. And does the scribe read or write, or teach you boys to write and read your own names only, or did you write your enemies' names as well as your own and your friends? As much the one as the other. And was there anything meddling or intemperate in this? Certainly not. And yet if reading and writing are the same as doing, you were doing what was not your own business. But they are the same as doing. And the healing art, my friend, and building and weaving are doing anything whatever which is done by art. These all clearly come under the head of doing? Certainly. Oopsie daisy. Don't know what I did there. And do you think that a state would be well ordered by law, which compelled every man to weave and wash his own coat, and make his own shoes, and his own flask and strigil, and other implements, on this principle of every one doing and performing his own, and abstaining from what is not his own? I think not, he said. But, I said, a temperate state will be a well-ordered state. Of course, he replied. Then temperance, I said, will not be doing one's own business, not at least in this way, or doing things of this sort. Clearly not. Then, as I was just now saying, he who declared that temperance is a man doing his own business and had another and a hidden meaning, For I do not think that he could have been such a fool as to mean this. Was he a fool who told you, Charmides? Nay, he replied, I certainly thought he was a very wise man. Then I am quite certain that he put forth this definition as a riddle, thinking that no one would know the meaning of the words, doing his own business. I dare say, he replied. And what is the meaning of the man doing his own business? Can you tell me? Indeed, I cannot, and I should not wonder if the man himself who used this phrase did not understand what he was saying. Whereupon he laughed slyly and looked at Critias. Critias had been long showing uneasiness, for he felt that he had a reputation to maintain with Charmides and the rest of the company. He had, however, hitherto managed to restrain himself. Some temperance. But now he could no longer forbear, and I am convinced of the truth of the suspicion which I entered at the time, that Charmides had heard this answer about temperance from Critias. And Charmides, who did not want to answer himself, but to make Critias answer, tried to stir him up. He went on pointing out that he had been refuted, at which Critias grew angry, and appeared, as I thought, inclined to quarrel with him, just as a poet might quarrel with an actor who spoiled his poems in repeating them. Sorry, Plato. And Shakespeare. So he looked hard at him and said, Do you imagine, Charmides, that the author of this definition of temperance did not understand the meaning of his own words, because you do not understand them? Why, at his age, I said, most excellent Critias, he can hardly be expected to understand. But you, who are older and have studied, may well be assumed to know the meaning of them. And therefore, if you agree with him and accept his definitions of temperance, I would much rather argue with you than with him about the truth or falsehood of the definition. I entirely agree, said Critias, and accept the definition. Very good, I said, and now let me repeat my question. Do you admit, as I was just now saying, that all craftsmen make or do something? I do. And do they make or do their own business only, or that of others also? They make or do that of others also. And are they temperate, seeing that they make not for themselves or their own business only? Why not? He said. No objection on my part, I said, but there may be a difficulty on his who proposes as a definition of temperance doing one's own business, and then say that there is no reason why those who do the business of others should not be temperate. Nay, the English reader, in brackets it says, the English reader has to observe that the word make in Greek has also the sense of do. Said he. Nay, said he, did I ever acknowledge that those who do the business of others are temperate? I said those who make, not those who do. What, I asked, do you mean to say that doing and making are not the same? No more, he replied, than making or working are the same. Thus much I have learned from Hesiod, who says that work is no disgrace. Now do you imagine that if he had meant by working and doing such things as you were describing, he would have said that there was no disgrace in them? For example, in the manufacture of shoes, or in selling pickles, or sitting for hire in a house of ill fame. That, Socrates, is not to be supposed, but I conceive him to have distinguished making from doing and work. And while admitting that the making anything might sometimes become a disgrace, when the employment was not honorable, to have thought that work was never any disgrace at all. For things nobly and usefully made he called works, and such makings he called workings and doings, and he must be supposed to have called such things only man's proper business, and what is hurtful not his business. And in that sense Hesiod and any other wise man may be reasonably supposed to call him wise who does his own work. O Critias, I said, no sooner had you opened your mouth than I pretty well knew that you would call that which is proper to man, and that which is his own, good, and that the makings of the good you would call doings, for I am no stranger to the endless distinctions which Prodicus draws about names. Now I have no objection to your giving names any signification which you please, if you will only tell me what you mean by them. Please then to begin again, and be a little plainer. Do you mean that his doing or making, or whatever is the word which you would use, of good actions is temperance? I do, he said. Then not he who does evil, but he who does good is temperate. Yes, he said, and you, friend, would agree. No matter whether I should or not, just now not what I think, but what you are saying is the point at issue. Well, he answered, I mean to say that he who does evil and not good is not temperate, and that he is temperate who does good and not evil. For temperance I define in plain words to be the doing of good actions. And you may be very likely right in what you are saying, but I'm curious to know whether you imagine that temperate men are ignorant of their own temperance. I do not think so, he said. And yet were you not saying just now that craftsmen might be temperate in doing another's work as well as in doing their own? I was, he replied. But what is your drift? I have no particular drift, but I wish that you would tell me whether a physician who cures a patient may do good to himself and good to another also. I think that he may, and he who does so does his duty. Yes. And does not he who does his duty act temperately or wisely? Yes, he acts wisely. It is interesting, unless I made a mistake. I had a brief look at the Greek. Only the word sophrosuna is used here, so temperance. But the fact that the translator translates it as wisely reminded me, and I will say later why likely, of phronesis, the word for wisdom, that he feels it's interchangeable as well. But must the physician necessarily know when his treatment is likely to prove beneficial and when not? Or must the craftsman necessarily know when he is likely to be benefited and when not to be benefited by the work which he is doing? I suppose not. Then, I said, he may sometimes do good or harm and not know what he is himself doing, and yet in doing good, as you say, he has done temperately or wisely. Was not that your statement? Yes. Then, as would seem, in doing good, he may act wisely or temperately, and be wise or temperate, but not know his own wisdom or temperance. But that, Socrates, he said, is impossible. And therefore, if this is, as you imply, the necessary consequence of any of my previous admissions, I will withdraw them, rather than admit that a man can be temperate or wise who does not know himself. And I am not ashamed to confess that I was in error. For self-knowledge would certainly be maintained by me to be the very essence of knowledge, and in this I agree with him who dedicated the inscription, "Know thyself," at Delphi. That word, if I am not mistaken, is put there as a sort of salutation which the god addresses to those who enter the temple, as much as to say that the ordinary salutation of "Hail" is not right, and that the exhortation, "Be temperate," would be far better way of saluting one another. The notion of him who dedicated the inscription was, as I believe, that the god speaks to those who enter his temple, not as men speak, but when a worshipper enters, the first word which he hears is "Be temperate." This, however, like a prophet, he expresses in a sort of riddle, for "know thyself" and "be temperate" are the same, as I maintain, and as the letters imply, and yet they may be easily misunderstood. And succeeding sages who added "never too much," or "give a pledge," and "evil is nigh at hand," would appear to have so misunderstood them, for they imagined that "know thyself" was a piece of advice which the god gave, and not his salutation of the worshippers at their first coming in. And they dedicated their own inscription under the idea that they too give equally useful pieces of advice. Shall I tell you, Socrates, why I say all this? My object is to leave the previous discussion, in which I know not whether you or I are more right, but at any rate no clear result was attained, and to raise a new one in which I will attempt to prove, if you deny, that temperance is self-knowledge. To know thyself, the other translation says, to make it fit closer to the Delphic inscription. Thus far our scripture of the evening. So much more of dialectic and ideologos popped into my mind. The scribe is there. And Socrates saying at a certain point, it doesn't matter what I think, you're the one speaking now. In dialectic ideologos, you have someone asking the questions, playing Socrates, And then you have someone who proposes definitions, doing the speaking. And everyone gets a chance, an opportunity to play each role. But while you are the questioner, you're not supposed to posit your own definition. So that came through here as well. And Socrates explicitly saying, it doesn't matter what I'm thinking at the moment, we're considering your thoughts. Also, the scribe's role is to jot down all the definitions, because the definitions do keep changing when you really think it through. And once I wrote that down, there was already 2 definitions: the doing of good actions and self-knowledge. And tomorrow we will go deeper into the self-knowledge, I imagine. Or the day after tomorrow for me. I'm recording this on Thursday, so I do a double recording today. Because by the time this is released, I will be dancing in the woods or on my way back home. It is summer solstice, and I think I don't know how many times I refer to Rebecca's book, but this festival I'm very much going to make use of the ritual she prescribed. I often do what she says and then make my own around it, and I'm going to do the same. Make it more. Starting tomorrow night with Dancing in the Woods, which is a coincidence tonight, the night that this is released. Dancing in the Woods is a very dangerous, because there's powers out there, but a very typical way to celebrate midsummer or summer solstice. It's a coincidence because my employer organized a party in the woods. Although I do think the woman who was in charge of it knows about the midsummer things. And then Saturday morning, I will be having a picnic under my sacred tree, if my friend agrees. I'm sure she wouldn't mind the location. She's coming over here and we'll have a breakfast picnic in the park. And then I will go into the ritual. Well, I'll probably do the recording before I go into the ritual. The intention is to have an extended ritual, starting Saturday evening, ending Sunday late morning. Structured within Rebecca's ritual, and seeing that it's the height of the sun. And I was recently confused about consciousness. I plan to look at that. I might venture into other questions about the nature of reality. The height of the sun is a good time to focus on such questions. But especially consciousness, because the sun is kind of a symbol of, could potentially be a symbol of consciousness. Of course, I will be leaning heavily on Alex. And that's why it will take me so long. I intend to rewatch a couple of stuff and write a bit and do some woo-hoo in between. But I'll record again before I go into that ritual. But so that you know, I'm giving you this warning on Friday night so that you can also have some summer solstice celebration. Just pay attention to the sun if you do not know what else to do. And if you know how to do a sun salutation, yoga pose, thingy-magingy, do that. Just dance. Temperance. I also liked that there was vindication of my attitude that the point is not who said it, but that they are true. Who said the words, but that they are true. Doing your own business. Something like this pops up as a definition given by Socrates of what justice is in the Republic. So that is interesting. You do, when you work with the virtues, you discover very much how intertwined they are. And really virtue, arete, could be seen as one thing with different sides, like a diamond. What is temperance? We still don't know. And knowing Platonic dialogues, we probably will not know by the end of the dialogue either. Temperance, the doing of good actions, or self-knowledge. I'm drawn to the self-knowledge thing, but I won't go into it today. I did read another, even though it's the same day, I did read another between the allocation of the text and the recording, mostly because that will leave me with John of the Cross tomorrow. And Rebecca writes that another word for the summer solstice is John Mass. Not Christmas, but John Mass, which we had to giggle about, seeing the first time we went through the wheel. The two men I was then obsessed with was John and Chris. So it's good to have John of the Cross tomorrow, or Saturday, your tomorrow. So today's saint did a lot of this doing good actions things. It wasn't just about self-negation. And it seems like what drove her was the power of love. God as the overwhelming force of pure love. And why she underwent a form of purgatory, she saw it as God's burning love, and the human then developing a corresponding fire of love. Quite erotically written, it finds itself stopped by sin and unable to follow the heavenly attraction. I mean that look that God cast on it to bring it into union with Him. So the reason why this soul goes through fire is for the sake of what she will meet on the other side, which is God. How do we, who do not subscribe with the ideas of a soul, of being sinful, and that we need to be purged in order to be united with the one we love. How do we interpret this as a form of temperance? The doing of good actions. I don't know. My head is empty. The only thing that I keep thinking about is what we've read about Eros, and how love is such a powerful force that drives us or draws us. To being, I want to say, more fully human. To connect with something on this earth. I think that's what I want to get away from. And not just because I want to, but because I'm obliged to. By my first initiation. To not try to escape this prison, as she calls it, and chains the body, but to celebrate it for what it truly is, which is possibly the only thing we have. I don't want to say to make the most of life, because that's so... Ugh. On the one hand, it's such a cliche, and on the other hand, it's almost detrimental advice, because too easily something like that can lead to the whole fear of missing out. Then I just come back to what I always say, which is so boring. I should let the text speak, although I wrote down extremely, not a lot, extremely little, but you know what I mean. So I don't have much on the text. That let love, the burning fire that is love, how does she express it? Burning love. The fire of love. Draw us in, deeper into this world, paying closer attention. opening ourselves to know and be known, to see and be seen, to touch and be touched. In a way that is good. Good actions is that which I would say is not harmful, but helpful, building, enhancing. Temperance then, especially in the connection with being, phronesis, is knowing the right time and place. Knowing what to do in every specific time and place to bring about the good. The beneficial. That's my definition of temperance today. I'll see you again after I've emerged from the woods. But before I delve into the full-blown ritual of the summer solstice, may the spirit of Sophia be with us.